What's up, everyone? All right, awesome song to start out today's episode. That song is titled Patterns from the electronic music producer Jake Kaiser. Now, Jake Kaiser is a friend of the podcast, and if you would like to check out his music, you can find him on Spotify at Jake Kaiser. That's Jakekeiser. At Jake Kaiser Music on Instagram, SoundCloud at Jake Kaiser, Spotify, all those good places. Go check out his music. He has a ton of music out there, and really just thankful that he is so cool and so willing to allow us to share out his music at the beginning of this episode. So really, go check out his music. Now, I've mentioned that I am looking to keep these introductions short, so I just have a couple things to mention. If you do want your song played out at the beginning of an episode, just reach out to me via Instagram or email. That's chasing.creativity.podcast on Instagram or chasingcreativitypodcast@gmail.com over email. I'd be more than happy to share out some of your music. I want this to be a collaborative platform for you to share out your music, and then, of course, to be able to have these awesome conversations with guests that I feel so fortunate that I'm able to do. So that's it. Make sure to do that if you're interested. Check out the website. There's all sorts of stuff. If you want to learn more, there's t-shirt, all sorts of stuff. So go check it out. But now let's jump into what's most important. So today's guest is Solanca. Now, Solanca is an electronic music producer who produces melodic deep house music that has been showcased on Root to Branch Volume 2 with the 2 tracks Belladonna and Great Belt. We talk about that today. We talk a lot about writing those 2 tracks, speaking with Lane 8, getting in touch with him and that label, releasing these tracks on This Never Happened, and the compilation specifically Root to Branch Volume 2. And it was just an awesome conversation. He is a really, really cool guy, down to earth, easy to talk with. So I had an awesome time. And I really hope you enjoy the episode. So again, as I mentioned, keeping these intros short. So let's jump right into the episode. I'm really excited to have this one out. So I do hope you enjoy it. And I hope to speak with you all again soon. We are live. Solanca, how's it going, dude?
Hello.
How are you, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing well, man. I'm really excited to get into this episode. I have been a fan of your music for a long time. It truly, when we were talking over email, the song that I mentioned was Belladonna on the on the Root to Branch Volume 2. Was that Volume 2?
Yes.
Yeah, Volume 2. Yeah, and that is still one of my all-time favorite songs. So, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
Well, thank you. Of course.
Yeah. So let's kind of just kick things off right from the beginning. If we take a look at music that you have released today, it's a couple tracks on Root to Branch Volume 2 and a remix. So my guess is, or my thought is, in terms of releases, this is all kind of new. Is that true?
Yeah, all new.
Okay, so when did this start?
Well, it all started... I believe 8 years ago when I was 15, 16.
Okay.
Started in school, made some music on my laptop. Just the way it went. Slowly built up. Slowly.
Yeah.
Gained more knowledge and how to make music and all. It was actually quite a long journey for me to say. Some people can do it in just a couple of years, but I actually had to take my time and work around this whole thing and figure out how I wanted to do it. And the Solanca project is still quite new to me. Something as soon as I got in touch with Lane 8, that's where it sort of started. So the whole thing of making serious music and actually releasing stuff is still new to me and still very exciting.
Oh yeah,
a lot of going to happen in the future.
Yeah, no, I would imagine having that opportunity to be speaking with Lane 8 and releasing music under a new project that's got to be absolutely really, really exciting.
It is.
Well, yeah. When you started, then, so you mentioned starting quite some time ago. What style of music was that? Was it kind of in the same genre of melodic, deep house or progressive house, or was it a different genre?
It's a bit funny because, well, a lot of my inspiration were actually from house music and from what we can say was in that time big room house, main room house, that kind of genre. And I experimented with a lot of different genres, hardstyle, drum and bass, trance, you name it.
Yeah.
But I always went back to house. Sometime it was always back to this one thing here. Either it was progressive or deep or whatever. So I decided to finally stick to house music solely because that was what I wanted and what I kind of felt like where I would sit perfectly.
Yeah. How long then would you say? So you're kind of not jumping around, but trying different genres and getting a sense of what genre really kind of clicked best with you. How long was it when you found, okay, I really want to focus in on house music, that you really developed your own unique sound? I mean, this seems like it was a long time of learning how to work in a DAW and working on different music. When did you really feel confident that you said, okay, I have a sound I really want to move forward with?
I believe it was in around 2016. Around there, I just moved out to my own apartment and had a lot of time and spare to think about things and figure out how I wanted to do this project and how I wanted to make music. So I started like collecting all the things I knew and things I wanted to do and put that into my music. And it's still something I'm trying to figure out today and figuring out how I want to go on with this.
Right.
But around that time was where it clicked for me, so to say.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool because, I find with myself and talking with people starting out in music, a lot of times right out of the gates, it's so overwhelming just to learn how to make music in a DAW that it takes a long time, and it's almost never really an ended project to really determine what someone's sound is. It takes some time.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting to be able to hear that from your perspective because it's this so far from my understanding is like this long time of learning how to work in a DAW, learning how to play music, checking or trying different styles, and then coming to this house sound, right? This kind of deep melodic sound. And then that must be really exciting because it had to have just like clicked, right? Because if you're at this stage where you have this experience, you're speaking with Lane 8, probably sending music, and then he says, hey, this is good. I want to work with you. I want to put this music out. And that actually started a new project. Is that right? So there was no Solanca before This Never Happened. Okay.
No, well, I had a lot of names, tried a lot of things, which trial and error.
Yeah, all of us,
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that's so fascinating. So, what was that process like? Did you just reach out to him? I know, speaking with Ryland, he just reached out via email and said, "Hey, here's some tracks. What do you think?" Kind of thing. Yeah,
it was that. I've been thinking about it for some time, thinking about maybe I should send him some music because he still is a huge inspiration for me.
Yeah,
and someone I look up to. So that the day I felt ready, I sent a track to him. And didn't know what to expect. Probably not something good. It wasn't that good, so to be honest. but what was amazing was that he replied.
Yeah,
and it was so constructive. He actually gave some usable feedback, and that really sparked my motivation to keep making that style of music and keep sending him tracks. So. Soon after, I had come up with something new and sent it to him, and he really liked that. It was really good, and he wanted to use it for his mixtapes, and soon after for the Root to Branch compilation. That was the Great Belt track, actually.
Oh, cool. So you had sent him Great Belt, and that's the one that he's like, okay, I want to release this. So Belladonna came after Great Belt. Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, That's so fascinating. And one, I think it's just amazing that he has gained so much popularity. And he's touring, he's producing these incredible tracks. He now has this label, and he still makes time to respond to people sending music and speaking with artists, because I would imagine that must be so time consuming to do. But from our perspective, your perspective, my perspective, from artists here, not at the level he's producing, of course, it's so cool that he would take the time just to at least start and give some constructive criticism on that first track you sent.
Yeah, it's really nice. Again, I didn't expect it. So it's a lot of time when you actually send a demo or a promo, you don't get any response at all.
Yeah.
Or perhaps just a no thank you.
Right.
So actually getting something that maybe it was a no, but it was something that I could bring on forward. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing feeling.
Yeah. And that's such a funny point you bring up too, because sometimes those times a person would send out to a promo or to a label, it's a much smaller label, and they won't even respond, or they'll just say no, and then Lane 8 on this, really producing amazing tracks and touring all this stuff, and he's making the time to respond to artists. And I think that really speaks to the label. If you look at how This Never Happened is evolving, the music on it is just incredible. And because he's taking the time to get to know the artist, to find this specific sound he's looking for, to support artists that are making music within this deep melodic house realm. And I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's incredible. So you had Great Belt, and he wanted to put that on Root to Branch Volume 2, and then where did Belladonna come about? Was that written previously, or did you say, okay, I have one, now I need to start working on some new tracks?
Yeah, well, after Great Belt, I just started, kept making more tracks. Some of them didn't go through. Some one track were meant to go through to the compilation, but were just after I sent Belladonna. It was I believe 5 to 6 months after Great Belt, and when he heard that, he just replaced the second one. So out with that and in with Belladonna. I believe he could probably hear the potential.
Oh yeah,
I'm also very glad for that, to be honest.
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful song. He probably fell out of his seat when
you heard that
one. Yeah, seriously, man, I do, and I think it's so cool. And this is one thing I wanted to bring up today is that really, really beautiful, unique melody that you have in that track. I was wondering if you remember how that came about. Do you remember the time when you were writing that track? I would think that it would be so exciting and exhilarating to really kind of have that click as that idea, because it's just such an engaging, unique melody. So what was that like?
Well, you're right. It was at a good time. Really one of the better days of producing, I would say. A lot of artists actually work well in the evening and nights.
Yeah,
so to say, but I'm actually best in the morning.
Oh, interesting.
So waking up at 6 or 7 a.m. and just getting straight to the work works the best for me.
Yeah,
and I had the whole day off to just make music, and that in the morning I came up with the melody and the whole idea of the track, and kind of had the most of the day to just think about how it should be made and how I should arrange it.
Yeah.
So I started out with these 2 sections. The one with the brass-like melody, the A section, and then the B section with the arpeggio.
Yeah.
And I figured they didn't sound good on top of each other, but as an A and a B side, it worked perfectly. So that became the whole idea of the track.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, sure. Well, working with these A and B sides or separate melodies or parts of a track is something I've grown to like a lot and experiment with, because it makes you able to keep the whole main section going without it getting stale.
Yeah.
Also, if you listen to the track Great Belt.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a B section there with a completely different melody.
Yeah.
It goes on for like 30 seconds, but it gives the section a little bit more, so you're able to dance a little bit more.
Right. Oh, I think that is a really, really cool observation, a really interesting observation, and a great way to approach writing music, because I noticed that when I would listen to Belladonna, so it's in a playlist I have when I bike back and forth to work, and I'll really focus in on, when I listen to music, just as a bedroom producer myself, what's really pushing this forward for me? Why is it so beautiful to me specifically? What's engaging about it? And I noticed it is that A and that B section, because you almost, the A section being that kind of more brassy section is, I would say, more forward and more kind of captivating than the B section. The arpeggiation is a little bit more subtle, but you can't have one without the other almost. It's like they support one another. If you just had the A section over and over again, it wouldn't be as engaging as to remove it and have that other section, then bring it back. Then when you bring it back, it's so engaging.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because the B section actually enhances the A section.
Right.
So the attention kind of goes away from the main melody for just a few moments of time and throughout the breakdown. And when the drop, so to say, actually arrives again, it's so much more powerful.
Yeah. It's so cool. I love thinking about it in that way, because making music is such an interesting thing, because it's technical, right? Working in the DAW is technical. The aspect that you mentioned here, by having like an A and a B, one that plays into the other, is a technical approach to thinking about music making. But at the same point, it's such an emotional endeavor too, because you want something that pulls at you emotionally when you're making it. So it's very interesting. I think that's a really profound and useful technique to address it, in that sense, where you kind of have a call and answer, almost A and B, and one plays off the other. And that can, if they fit well, if they're different enough, but they fit together and they play off one another, it can just make for this beautiful track, which has come through. It's really cool.
Of course.
Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, thinking about the whole call response thing, it's something that can be quite useful also when making this minimalistic electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear a lot of house or techno tracks, of course it has to be minimalistic, but working with this call response thing can also enable the producer and the music to work in this minimalistic approach. Thinking about perhaps using the same melody in two ways, or the same synth in two ways.
Yeah.
And making the track more interesting in that way.
Right. And then, you'll see kind of in that same sense, the melody, oftentimes a given producer will, throw it up an octave or something to really kind of give it might be that same section, but that's going to be what makes it a little bit different, or opens up a cutoff or something on the synth. So then it's just a little bit more. Yeah. But I love that idea of that call and response, because I think for me personally, and people out there listening, it's just something you kind of throw in your back pocket and say, if you're stuck working on a track, and maybe you have one section that's beautiful, you're just really happy with it, and you're getting kind of like, well, if I just play it over and over again, or I pull it out and then it's just something's missing, and then thinking, okay, let's just take a completely different section, maybe it's even at least maybe in the same key, but a different project, and piece it in here and see what happens. Maybe that's enough to have this 2-section part of a song that will pull it together, right?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, man. I love just thinking about that creative process, and getting into this conversation. This is why I'm excited for every conversation I do, but this song in particular has always just resonated with me so much. So just hearing what that process was like writing it, and also, as you mentioned, it's so different from previous conversations, because most people I've spoken with so far will say it's about midnight or 1 a.m. or in the middle of the night when things really click for making music. But you seem to find that, hey, if you wake up at early in the morning, 6-ish, 7-ish a.m. and start working right there, that's when creatively you feel like the most engaged with your music.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Having just a couple of hours in the morning can really get things going.
Yeah.
Also, having a limited time can also help me a lot. For say, I have 2 hours at here. I'll use them as good as I can, and getting engaged in making music, instead of just saying, "Oh, I have all day or all night to do it," but kind of be consistent to getting into the music and make something on time. So really helps on the motivation.
Right. If you as you mentioned have this finite time that you have to work in, do you almost have you experienced this? This is something I wanted to speak about today. Have you ever felt then with that limited amount of time that you get into a state where you're so focused on something that time passes so quickly? Like that 2 hours is just gone. Like you're really, really focused in because okay, only have 2 hours to work on this, and it just goes by in like an instant.
Yeah, all the time, all the time. But per se, I have 2 hours. I'll be aware of how much time I'll left, and something if I say, "Oh, I only have 30 minutes left to finish this section here," then I'll of course push on for 30 minutes. But of course, you lose time when you engage in a project.
Yeah. The reason I ask is I've been reading a book and watching some documentaries and such on the idea of like flow state, right? So when you're working on something really engaging like that you can get so captivated by your work and so engaged in that work that you feel as if time is non-existent. You're so focused on that you almost lose a self-awareness. And it's fascinating because I see that oftentimes speaking with producers, right? It's oftentimes expressed that they get into this creative state where it's all just focused on that project. And I'm wondering kind of for yourself then, maybe you found that it's easier almost to get into that state in the morning, or you're just more, I don't know, maybe you're just more of a morning person.
Well, first of all, I am a morning person.
Okay.
But similar to the people who work best at night, it's due to the way the brain works, and different hormones passing through the brain, and in the morning they're somewhat still there in the brain, so this whole dream state is still accessible for the mind. So instead of being a little bit tired and not thinking too much, actually helps out. So the brain isn't fully connected to the rest of the body, so it kind of makes the whole musical engagement a little bit more fluent. You don't have to think about how it sounds, you just make music.
Right. Yeah, you could. And I've noticed that same thing or heard it on interviews or whatnot and mentioned in previous conversations, but yeah, that's it. It's like this brain state where you're almost half in a dream state, and that's so cool you mentioned it that way, because a lot of people say in the middle of the night, that's when they get in that state. They're kind of almost delirious, but you're still experiencing that a little in the morning. You're kind of still a little groggy, almost in that that hormonal level. Yeah. So you can still get in the same state. Yeah,
and still get some sleep, of course.
Still get some sleep. Right. Try and get sleep as best as possible. Yeah. Because see, I was imagining it totally differently. I was thinking you're wide awake in the morning, you had your coffee, you're like sharp, and that's when you work on music, but maybe not necessarily. You're up, but you're still kind of in this dream state, and that still allows you to be really creative and come up with interesting ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And most of that has to play into as well, because you and I were speaking before we started this conversation that you're in school right now. So yeah. So you're working on music in the morning and then classes in the afternoon. Is that typically how a day goes? Yeah,
typically.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Then how do you kind of see this? Is I I find this really interesting because you mentioned you're studying engineering. We were speaking before, and I myself did engineering as well, and I'm out of school now. I'm working, and I think you're in this amazing place right now because you are finishing your courses, but you're also having this incredible success with your music as well. I mean, releasing on Lane 8's label is incredible. So where are you kind of mentally in this whole thing? Where do you foresee this moving into the future? Is the idea to, kind of manage music with a full-time job, or where do you see that going?
I'm not sure about it right now. Well, I could say that I want to, finish my degree and just focus on music, or quit the music and just focus on getting a job. But I don't want to bet on either, so to say. Yeah. I'm not ready to bet on the music or just bet on a full-time job either. Yeah. I want to keep the focus on music as a part-time thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that allows for it to be. I think that helps when you want to really be true to the music and true to the creative process too. Because if you're not maybe focusing on, okay, I'm only going to focus on music, that would put so much pressure on it that the sound might start to change. You may look and say, okay, well, if I'm just going to purely do music, maybe even subconsciously be thinking I need to make something that is really popular, right? Because those people are popular, they're famous. Okay, I'm going to kind of emulate what they're doing. But if you manage this balance, you can really just focus on exactly the sound you want to make and not have any restrictions with it, really. And I think that's a cool way to go about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's also what I think of it. And I still want to have fun when I'm making music and not be frustrated about it. It still happens. I still think a lot about that I have to make this track to keep the thing going, or I have to make it like this to make sure that it moves people. Yeah. And it just gets bigger and bigger, but I have to calm myself down and think about that. I'm just doing this for the fun of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and you'll probably agree that when you can really focus in and say, okay, I'm just doing this for the fun of it, that's when the tracks you're most happy with come about. And that's when when you're really true to yourself and the sound you're trying to make, the sound that you make, that's when people relate to it the best as well, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be true.
Yeah, I like to think about that, or at least believe it, because I think there's something. What I like to think is, each person who's working on music, there's this kind of spectrum, right? Where based on how they think about the music they're making is going to influence it, right? So an example would be if, say, I was really, really caught up in like, okay, I want to be famous. Like, say that was my only reason I was making music, right? Well, I'd make music like whatever's really popular, like Marshmello type music or something, right? Right? And the thing is, that wouldn't be my unique voice in music, right? I would be emulating something else, So
of course,
if you remove all of that, and then if you just don't focus on it at all, and you just make music for yourself and the music you want to make, then this unique voice of yourself comes through the music. Just there's something that's inherent to that person. And my hope, I guess, and my feeling is like when someone really can express that unique voice for themselves, then that's what people engage with, So yeah. So I at least I like to think of it that way, because I found with myself when I first started making music, I was really trying to make this kind of progressive, like electro progressive house kind of Deadmau5-y sound, and it sounded too much like Deadmau5, too much in a bad way. It just sounded fake, it wasn't really anything unique. And then once I said, screw it, I really want to focus on music for myself, I'm much happier with the music I'm making, and I feel like it is a bit more unique. So sometimes it takes removing that and saying, screw it, I'm just doing it for me, and removing all those kind of worries and limitations, and then something really unique can come through.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I would wonder, my kind of guess is that from an outsider looking at your music and your experience so far is like, this has been this process of starting out quite some time ago, learning how to work in a DAW, trying out different genres, and then as you found, okay, house music is the best fit for you, you really developed your own unique voice and let your voice kind of come through the music. And that's what I'm thinking is like Lane 8 saw that and he's like, oh, this is something really special. And hey, look, here you are releasing on This Never Happened, because it's unique music to you and you're just focusing purely on the music.
Well, yeah, probably. No.
Yeah.
But all the time and experience I've had, I had to do quite a lot of thinking of how I wanted to go with what would be my vision with the music. If I closed my eyes, where would my own music take me? What would I think of, and how would I want people to think of it? And this whole idea of how I wanted my music to be, so to say, visually, kind of helped me progress it and move it forward. And that is also the reason why a lot of my music is nature inspired.
Yeah.
Because I want people to visually think of nature when they hear my music.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're a perfect fit for that label, because that is what I think a lot of the sounds are. It is like that nature, all the album art is in that same idea of nature. And, you listen to someone like yourself or like Cohen as well, very like natural sound to the deep melodic house elements, and I think that's beautiful. So just touching back on that, when you close your eyes and you think about that, about what someone might be feeling or thinking when they listen to your music, is it a specific scene in nature, something local to Denmark that really ties you into like, this is what you're looking to express through the music?
Well, yeah, somehow. Well, first of all, the track Great Belt, I kind of came up with the idea when I was sitting on a train passing on the Great Belt, and kind of went home and made the track and kind of got the idea from there. So I was just sitting here on the train and watching this beautiful view over the sea, and then the concrete bridge. And that kind of made me think on how you could make something out of that. Kind of with this cool. Dreamy textures and a concrete beat.
Yeah. Did you actually have the melody at that point too, or was it more thinking visually of how that inspired you, and then you were looking to emulate, or not emulate, but kind of recreate that in a song? Or do you ever kind of get that melody in your head as well, or is it more while you're in front of the DAW, in front of the keyboard?
It's more when I'm actually working on the music. I can't really come up with melodies outside the studio. But
same with myself, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
it's hard, yeah.
It took some time to actually create the melody for Great Belt. It took a few tries, but when it finally sat there, it was spot on. Something that really worked well in the track. Yeah. That's always an interesting thing to think about too. Is when something is clicking, it's hard to, I think, verbalize, to be working on a track and saying, okay, this is it. I found the right melody that fits here. And it's this exploratory process, which is always so fun and strange in itself anyways. But what was it then, if you don't, hopefully this is a good question, but what was it then about the track where you really felt like, okay, this is it? Like, where how do you set that kind of marker for yourself, or what is it about the track that will allow you to feel that way? I think it's the whole emotion and the progression of it having, it started out with a simple atmospheric synth, and then I worked on with the bass line. And when I get those two things working, it starts to have some potential. You know, and I just started working on the drums and the whole arrangement of it, but I still needed melody. I knew that this could go somewhere, but it still needed that extra thing to carry it on, and that just kept me going.
Right. So at that point, it's kind of trial and error, looking for the melody, but you knew it had the foundation to be something.
It had the foundation,
right? Yeah. That's so interesting. I love hearing those stories, and I love just being able to look at these tracks, or listen to these tracks rather, that I appreciate so much, and then understand a bit better of what it was like to go about that, and kind of get a sense from yourself as to even how a project starts. So your typical approach is usually more foundational, like bass and then some overarching chords that kind of build an idea, and that allows you to be more imaginative of what a melody might sound like and where it might fit better.
Yeah, most of the time. Well, always work with the chords, the bass line, the melodies before the drums. Always get that melodic foundation for the track before working on the groove and the drums. I can't do it the other way around. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some people will start with a kick, and I could never do that. Never. So, do you know? Have you heard of Julian Gray? He's on Mousetrap.
Yeah.
Have you? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're familiar with his music and such. So I watched something, I think, on his YouTube channel where he said that sometimes he'll start with like a 4/4 kick, and that just locks me in way too much. I can't think. It just distorts everything. So I'm the same way. It's chords, just really exploratory with like a bass line or something like that. Then something clicks and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this will go somewhere. Yeah. It's really interesting. One thing I thought was so cool, and I actually wasn't familiar with this until recently, is Lane 8 does do the This Never Happened summer gatherings. I didn't even know of the first one. But I guess he's doing a second one. And I thought this is so awesome, and I wanted to see if you had heard more about this. But he's doing the tour, This Never Happened gatherings, rather, and he has it so there's no cell phones at the venues. Have you heard of this?
Of course.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's
really cool. And
I
really like the concept, and also one of the reasons I want to stick to Lane 8 and the This Never Happened team, because that whole idea is so profound and so meaningful for the clubbing environment.
Yeah.
Also something I see here in Denmark when I go to town or go clubbing. People always have their phones with them.
Right.
And after getting involved to the This Never Happened team, you start to think about it more than you probably would before.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something that could go on and be a thing in the future, and people being more aware of not using their phones in the club and actually just enjoying the musical experience.
Yeah, the moment. Yeah. I actually I was fortunate enough to see Lane 8 came to my city. This was actually the day I had the interview with Cohen. So it was just a weird experience, or weird coincidence. Yeah. And I remember there, he was playing, and at the front, everyone had their cell phone out, holding it up, recording them. So if you took a step back and looked at the front of the crowd, you'd see just the sea of people holding their phone ups, looking at them. And you're right. It totally takes away from that experience. It's no longer about that moment where you're listening to the music, you're with the people you care about because you're going to a show with them. It's about capturing it, right, for something else.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I actually started to question myself whenever I had to take out my phone and take a picture or video. I started to think, why am I doing this? Who am I going to show it to? well, that's something that I realized, and from that point on, I didn't really do it. I didn't really take any pictures when I was either at a concert or a club. So to say, I just kept it in my mind and in my heart.
Right. because it's you're right. I mean, it's why is it so important to have this up on, and I do it. I'm bad about it, but you have that thought. You're like, why am I doing this? Why?
Yeah.
Who needs to see this? And especially if it's to the degree where it's taking away from the experience. If you're just on your phone and you're missing all of this, then it's just totally backwards. You should be there enjoying that experience with the people, as I mentioned, rather than who's gonna see it or who's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's absolutely awesome. I think that's such a cool idea, and I'm glad to see that summer gatherings is happening again. I looked at 2017. I know it was, at least the New York show was Lane 8 and Luttrell. Is the idea to be all This Never Happened artists, or how does that work? Or
well, I can't be a complete This Never Happened artist because I have some future releases elsewhere. I also have the remix at Songspire Records.
Yeah.
But I want to stick to This Never Happened and keep on being a part of the family, so to say.
Yeah.
Because I believe that it's important for a label as well and for the artist to have this connection and friendship that we can share with each other.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's such an awesome part of being a producer, because you meet these other people and you get to nerd out about making music. Yeah.
I was actually thinking, if you were to put all of the This Never Happened family members in one room, 10 minutes would pass and we would be best pals.
Oh yeah. Seriously. Yeah, because it's so easy as someone who, when you work on music, it's so easy to just go in and start talking about making music, and you usually have at least so much overlapping interest that the conversation it's going to happen. It's like these conversations here. It's just easy.
Of course.
We didn't have questions set up before. It's just let's start talking, and then you get into it, and it's just it couldn't be easier. But I think that's a great way to put it, and I hope that continues to go that direction with the label. Is really true to this unique sound. You get this feeling from all of the artists on the label that there's just this like reverence for that type of music. It's just like really beautiful melodic house, deep house, and I just love it for that reason. I just think it's incredible music, and just seeing how he approaches it outside it too, just like by your story, just him responding to you and giving some feedback, and then this developing into this working relationship or friendship where he's releasing your music just speaks more to the label too. I mean, couldn't be cooler.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. Now, when you work on tracks, I wanted to ask this. So you have that brassy, moogish kind of sound for the lead in Belladonna. Are you doing everything in a DAW, or do you use some analog synths, or what's that like?
I use an analog hardware.
Okay. Which ones? Yeah.
Well, I do have two right now.
Mm-hmm.
The brass melody and, well, actually all of the analog parts of Belladonna is actually made on a Korg monologue.
Okay.
So a tiny monophonic synth, really a dirty piece of hardware. Sounds really nice and warm, but can also be very distorted and really eerie. But using it carefully and precise, you can get this really beautiful brass type sound often, and it's perfect for bass lines as well. So whenever I need that type of sound, I go out and pick it up and plug it in and start fiddling with it. Start working on a solid bass line or somewhat of a monophonic melody, and use that.
Do you find that you feel more comfortable playing the keys? Do you have any experience playing piano from a young age, or what's that?
I have no musical experience from my childhood whatsoever.
Okay.
it's all just well, I do have some musical theory about keys and scales, but not much. I know if I want to write this in, say, D minor, I know where to put my fingers and work around that, and try thinking of something that could be catchy or interesting. But it depends, actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do it by clicking on the mouse. Sometimes I can play it on the piano. It's a complete coincidence.
Yeah. I think a lot of people resonate with that. Sometimes it's clicking around the DAW for things that can't be played, because I do enjoy playing with like contact instruments, right? So I'll have actually a couple different pianos, like a grand and then some Olafur Arnold's wraps in there too. And there's some chords that I wouldn't be able to have come up with without just clicking around in the DAW, It just too different, right? But then sometimes you get that experience with your hands on the keyboard and something kind of clicks too.
Yeah, sure. But it can also be sort of a limitation, because I have some muscle memory and some routines on the keyboard, so getting away from that and actually just trying something that I wouldn't do on the keyboard, something that I could just click on through with the DAW, trying that way can also be quite creative. And thinking of something that you wouldn't think of, so to say.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because you're right. You get into muscle memory, right? So you'll kind of go to maybe one chord and you'll play with your right hand, and you're right. It's like a go-to. You get kind of caught in these loops, right? So then, as you mentioned, moving to the DAW can kind of free you of that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting way you put that. I actually hadn't thought about that because I will at times, I have, in my little studio, I'll have a MIDI controller, and there's a piano back at home. I'm actually moving it here in a couple weeks when we move into a bigger place, but I think that it can be a really creative process to sit down in front of sit in front of a MIDI keyboard or sit in front of a piano. But I hadn't thought of it that way. You're kind of locked into things you've written before, ideas that have come through, and you're almost limiting yourself in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. So then what do you what's kind of happening right now? I mean, we were speaking earlier, you're in your sixth semester or sixth term, so 6 years at university?
Sixth semester.
Okay. So you're in undergrad in an engineering program, which you're probably busy as hell, because I remember I was busy as hell.
Well, no, not at the moment. I have a lot of time to work on my bachelor's thesis.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm working on that project as well.
Is there a lot of music right now then too? Kind of balancing between the two, the thesis and music?
Well, I was actually promising myself I would cut down on the music to focus on the thesis, but not at this moment. I'm still making a lot of music because I have the time to it.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to, music can be so addicting. So I at least I found with myself that I'll say, okay, I got to really kind of pause and I got to work on other things, but you get caught up in a project and it's hard to step away. So then do you have some tracks that are being reserved for future releases right now? Well,
yeah, I have a lot of coming in this new year, and in the next couple of months I do have another remix and another single release, but I also have another EP for This Never Happened.
Oh, cool.
Another EP is coming from me. I'm so excited about it. I've been working on it all summer.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. So a dedicated Solanca EP.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I am stoked for that. Would you say the sound is similar to previous tracks we've heard? Or
it is.
Yeah.
It's the idea behind it is to say an introduction to me, an introduction to my sound, and of course the whole nature-inspired theme here. Well, you can kind of say that the the next couple of tracks here are kind of resemblance, or say evolutions of my sound in some way. So kind of in nature you have different families. So from one root you have kind of a species that differs out from that one particular species. That's the same idea, actually. Having tracks that resembles and evolves from that one particular sound. That also means that some of the tracks will have resemblance to, say, the more euphoric sound for like a Great Belt, and also the more darker sound for Belladonna.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I like how you have visualized that a bit, right? So it's still your same sound, but it's just kind of evolutions, as you mentioned, from there, where it's just kind of growing and it's expanding a bit, because I'm sure this release will be more than a few tracks, right? So you have this opportunity to kind of grow and play with some different ideas, still staying true to your sound, but just kind of expanding on that a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so excited. That will be really cool. I just love all the releases coming from that album, or that record label, excuse me. And yours have always stuck out to me. Your tracks have always stuck out to me, so I'm really excited.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that, and I will mention it for the listeners and promote it, of course, with my little platform, Nothing Near This Never Happens reach, but I will definitely shoot it out there, and so I think that's so cool. One thing I wanted to ask is, you being in Denmark and Cohen being not close, I would say, but he's up in Norway.
Yeah.
Do you guys speak at all? Have you met? I mean, that must be kind of cool. You guys are relatively close.
Yeah, we're close, but we never met or never talked, actually.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps I should reach out to him and say hello, but it's something I haven't thought of yet. It's funny because our sound is somewhat similar, but never had any, never met the guy or heard anything from him before. So it's kind of a funny coincidence.
Yeah, I know. It was funny when you mentioned that you're from Denmark. I was thinking, wow, yeah, you guys are pretty close. I think he's pretty far up north in Norway, because he says that parts of the year are dark, parts of the year are light. So meaning he's really far from the equator.
Yeah.
So you don't experience any of that in Denmark, do you?
Not
you're not
in the
north
same
enough.
way.
Yeah. I think he's pretty far north, but man, yeah, that's cool. He was in the same way that we got to speaking. I just reached out to him over Instagram, and really nice guy, really easy to speak with. So. Yeah, really, really cool dude. But yeah, I think that's funny too. You guys do share similar, it's like in the same genre, same kind of style. You both your unique sounds, but there are some similarities there. So it's funny. You guys are close, same style of music, but never met. Yeah. Well, damn man, that's so cool. I think just being able to sit down and talk about this stuff, and especially get the news that there's a dedicated EP coming out, is super exciting. And you must just feel like, we've spoken about this a bit, but you just must feel like you're in such an interesting place, because school is wrapping up, right? You're in your third year, and you're pursuing a great career in medical devices, and right, medical related or medical devices? Both, yeah, okay. Yeah. But then at the same point, so much happening with the music that I just see it as this really fulfilling path that you're taking, where the work can really give back to people, right? If you're working within the medical realm, right, where you're designing for medical devices, and at the same point, you're making music that speaks to so many people. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not sure what to answer that.
It's well, it's hard. I know. I understand. I mean, I'm like, kind of. Sometimes I go on crazy tangents.
but I'm really glad at where I am right now. It's been a long journey, and I'm so satisfied of the result, and I'm really proud of what I've been doing. And also I'm really proud of the track Belladonna as well. It's one that really sticks out, and something that I'm proud of saying that that's my own work here. That's something I made, and I also listen to it a lot as well. It's an interesting song. It's crazy how fast it came to be. I made it in a day.
Oh wow!
It came up with the idea in the morning and did the melody, the bass line, the drums, the percussion, and a lot of creative processes actually went into that that I didn't realize. But
go ahead. Sorry.
Working on that and working committed to this one track really helps on the motivation as well. Thinking about what did go well back then. What did I do that worked so well? And thinking of that and using that again can be something I can put into the next tracks as well.
Right. Thinking about where you were mentally that day, to have this insight, this creative explosion, and for that track to be done in one day. I know when I spoke with Rylan, he mentioned the same thing. Those tracks that happen quickly, those are the ones that he would mention are the most powerful and that speak the most to him, because they're almost just easy to write. Once it comes through you, it just flows, and that's it. So you would say you'd experience the same thing here.
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's sometimes those tracks. It's funny because sometimes the tracks that take a bit longer are in this weird place where either they're not going to go anywhere. You can just beat them to death and nothing's going to happen with them. You can just keep trying and it's just not going to work. Or they take a little bit longer, but then by the end of it, you're happy with them. But man, I think it's so interesting that this song that I think speaks to me and speaks to so many people, and Lane 8 replaced one song on the EP with it because he's like, he must have loved it, So he was like, this one has to stay. That just came so quickly. It's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't even have time to think about it. I just did it.
Right. And I bet that's part of it. It has to be part of it too, is when you can't chase it. It's just, it'll happen again. You'll find yourself and everyone out there listening, you can't, I guess I'm saying, I think people out there listening would agree, you can't force that to happen, but sometimes you get out of your own way, something just clicks, you're in the right mental space, and boom, you have this great idea, and that's it. It's just like an explosion, and you don't really know how to get back there. I don't think anyone really does,
No, probably not.
You just got to be lucky and hope it comes again frequently or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, sure, but also remembering what you did and using the tools that worked instead of those that didn't. Thinking about what did I do right this time, and how can I do that again? Yeah, that can also help on the whole process.
Totally. Well, what did you take away from that experience that you'd say that are like, these are the few things I really like, I want to try to do again, or maybe a couple of these say, maybe trash that thing I was doing there?
Oh, there are so many different, simply complicated things that I did, both beforehand and while, and so much. Well, one of the things were these almost gritty ambient textures. So say they're both in the drums and in the background and as effects, but also something as simple as taking a break. After working on the main idea, I went out, I took a break, had some time to think about the track, and actually just sitting in my head and constructing it. Going away from the studio can actually enforce the music, and again, I have the time to play it inside my head and think, okay, if I do this, then I can do that, and then I'll go into this, and then up and boom, and so on.
Oh, cool.
That's one of the things,
Yeah.
or something as simple as writing down how I want to construct a track. Simply just on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I have this notebook sitting on my desk. So if I have an idea that's going through this fundamental phase, or either I'll have it ready to write something down when it happens. Sometimes it happens just outside a few meters away from my desk. Sometimes 100 meters, something like that. But I'll be ready to write it down when something clicks in my head, and I play the track back in my mind and think, okay, it's going through this, and then I can take it through that, and then I'll have 16 bars of that and something like that.
Yeah.
Just writing it down, plain simple, making the whole construction that way, and using that as a recipe to make it when you actually have the time to arrange it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I love that. It's really cool because it's a bit analytical, right? Because you're an engineer, so you're so I remember, I mean, so much of like when I was in undergrad, if say we're working on a project, right, coding project, it's always about writing out on paper first how you want it to work over time. Like, what are the different pieces? How will they work together? And you're kind of taking those ideas and applying it to making music.
Yeah.
You're thinking, okay, this section, this section. If I can, and I love that too, because I'm sure people out there resonate with that, but also it's this very imaginative experience where you have to be able to see and kind of see visually or hear in your mind what the different sections will be like. And I personally, I don't think I could do that. So I think that's really cool that you can kind of step back and think about the different sections, how they sound, and almost have this scaffolding in your mind as to where you want it to go, and then sit down at the DAW and get in the nitty-gritty of the track and make that work, versus sitting at the computer and tooling around until something clicks.
Yeah, definitely. And something that worked for me, and something is it's simple, so to say. Well, maybe not the whole thinking about the song in your head, but actually getting away of being frustrated about how the track should progress while singing with it. Just take a step back and think about how you'd like it. Perhaps take some inspiration from other tracks. How is the arrangement in this track or in that track? Right. And say, yeah, I like this section here, but also this one, so I'll use them as inspiration for my own track, and getting this relation with them.
Right.
And use that as well.
Oh yeah. That's that I like the way you put that, where you take a step back, remove yourself, and just think about, I mean, it sounds simple, but it may not even necessarily be that simple to take a step back and say, how do you want this track to sound? How do you want it to play out? And at that point, you're almost putting yourself in the shoes of the listener and saying, what is really going to sound good here for the progression of this track? And I think that does take some real, an objective stance to be like, if I want this to resonate with people, I like this idea, but I want it to resonate with people, what needs to change? How does it need to sit for it to do so, to resonate with people? And I like that you take a step back and think about, okay, what does that look like? How do I do this? And pulling on inspiration from other artists. Yeah. Because someone can get too caught up sitting in the DAW, playing with stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Ripping stuff. You could waste time. It could be a time sink.
Yeah, of course. But
yeah,
something I learned to do and use that as a tool as well, because I love a thing that I heard a lot. Producers talking about you always almost make the best music when you're not making music. Right. And that is also something that you can take along and use that as well as, a creative tool. Yeah. Being a creative when you're not being creative. And kind of calming down the mind instead of overthinking about how you'd like it or how it should be, and just simply just thinking about how it could be, or
Right.
several options how it could be or should be, or something. A thing that I was frustrated about when making music just a couple of years ago was that I didn't feel like the arrangement was very natural or organic. So I had to think of this method of, how can I make the track be organically arranged or not being so hard cutting in sections.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of it in that way. You say you have this one section here that I write down. Okay, then I'll go from this and build up in that way, and then I'll go over to this section and putting timestamps on and having that, limiting myself to saying, okay, I'll have this section for this long, and then I'll have it for this long.
Yeah. And that's all on paper. When you're talking about the timing, is that on paper that you're thinking about the different sections, or that's in the track setting time markers and moving between different portions of the track?
No, that's on paper.
On paper. Oh, yeah.
I write something just similar as, around 16 bars is 30 seconds-ish.
Yeah.
So I'll use that as a way of measure. So I want this for like 1 minute, that's like 32 bars-ish.
Yeah.
And then I'll use that, say I want it for this long, and then I want it for this long.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll describe something on the way, but it's a way of getting it down somewhere without really having to think a lot about it.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool, and so it's funny to me because you're approaching it like an engineer, dude. I love it. It really is. It's a process I haven't heard anyone mention so far, but it's analytical. But in a creative way too. You're like parsing everything out. You're like, okay, this section, and you're getting this rough scaffolding on paper of what you want it to look like, and then you're executing the project. I mean, that's engineering at its finest, So you're like engineering this creative process. It's so cool. Oh yeah. All of this conversation was just fascinating, man. I really had a good time doing this one, and I really loved having the opportunity just to speak about some of those tracks, hear your take on some of this stuff. So
thank you.
I mean,
I also enjoyed it,
dude. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this was super, super cool, and hearing your take on new releases, or not your take rather, but hearing about new releases, hearing your take on how you produce some of these tracks, man. I just think that for people out there listening, learning about the creative process, people starting out in music production, it's just an awesome time to be able to look inside your head as to how you work on music. So super cool.
Definitely.